Thank you for joining me today on the Perry Stone YouTube channel. We always like to say up front to subscribe to the channel and always click the thumbs up so that the algorithm will reach more people with the messages that we're presenting to you. Now, I wrote a book several years ago called There's a Crack in Your Armor. And so some of the teaching I'm doing, in fact, a lot of it that I'm doing comes out of that book. And so I want to share with you something about how to keep from slipping or how to keep from falling in the time of battle. The Bible talks about that we walk in the Spirit. So walking is movement. The Bible talks about running the race with patience. So there is the metaphor used of someone that is running. But there's not just times to walk and not just times to run. There's also times in which you have to stand. And the Bible tells us in the book of Ephesians 6, where Paul talked about the whole armor of God and putting on what we call the full armor or the whole armor of the Lord. He said one of the things you have to have is having your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. In other words, being ready to get up and go at any given moment to any location at any time to present the gospel message. Now, Paul, as you know, was chained many times in a Roman prison, and being chained in the prison, he was surrounded at times by Roman soldiers. In fact, in a Roman prison, that's exactly what he saw, was a fully dressed soldier. Now, you can see kind of a picture of one that has the shield and he has the helmet and so on here in the background. And those are the type of individuals that Paul was consistently seeing in his travels, and also he was surrounded with in prison. Now, what does it mean to have your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel? Well, let me say it to you this way. How many of you have ever had a slip up where you're walking and you fall and you have to get back up and continue walking in faith and walking in the Word and walking in with the Lord once again? We call it a failure. Sometimes it's a spiritual problem. Sometimes it's a physical or mental weakness. Sometimes it is caused by a temptation that you encounter that you yield yourself to. So what is the idea of how to, having done all to stand, stand therefore? That's a phrase that Paul used in Ephesians chapter 6. Now, that doesn't mean, as some would suggest, that you're in a battle and you're weak and weary, you're about to fall down. Don't fall, keep standing. It actually can mean this, that when you have fought every battle you can fight, dealt a blow to every spiritual enemy that you know, keep on standing and keep on fighting. So it's not the idea of someone becoming weak and falling. It's the idea of you are winning battles and keep winning them by not quitting and not getting up. So having done all to stand and standing therefore could be a metaphor for not quitting and never giving up. But let's take a look at these shoes. Now, these are replicas that are made that are copies of a Roman soldier's sandals. They were actually sandals that they wore back in the day when Paul wrote the book of Ephesians. Now, you can see that they have a real solid, thick leather at the bottom. They bend very easy. And one of the things that was unique about these was because they are made of leather, they're very soft. In other words, a Roman soldier, if necessary, to get from one destination early in the morning to the next destination by sunset, could march up to 20 or 25 miles wearing these shoes without them having a real negative effect on him. Now, of course, your feet are going to be sore if you walk that far, but notice how they're made. They're very pliable. They bend, they're soft, they go up high to the ankle so that if they are walking up a hill where there are rocks, that the ankle does not twist. Because if you've ever, like I was as a young boy, walk up down the mountains of Kentucky or southwestern Virginia or even Tennessee or Virginia, then you'll find out that sometimes when you're between rocks with low tennis shoes on, and I'm talking about here, these cover the ankle, above the ankle, that you could twist your ankle very easy. So that because of fighting and how they were having to turn and move quickly, they had to wear a high shoe so that their ankles would not twist. But here's the real key to having done all to stand. Now, in this example, these are just little like thumbtacks that have been put in with a design on them. But the Roman soldiers' shoes had different types of metal at the bottom of them, or spikes. Now, this is interesting to understand this. What this did, since most of their marching was on dusty roads, a lot of their marching was on open land, so they had to have a place to grip it in case it got wet, if the grass got wet or the ground got wet where they were fighting. You had to have something, and there were shoes that actually had spikes. And the best way to describe them, I think, would be the football spikes that the players used to have back in the 40s and 50s, and I even think in the 60s. And of course, a lot of people got cut and they had their hand stepped on. They changed those to the plastic now in the shoes of, for example, football players. But what happened was when they would go up on a hill and they were fighting an enemy. Now, if they're at the top, they have a little advantage, but they can still slip. If they're at the bottom going up, they are at a disadvantage, so they have to be able to stand so that the enemy doesn't just push them and they fall. So the key was having the right shoes on in the time of battle. And when they had the shoes that had the half-inch spike, they could put their feet in the ground, and yes, having done all to stand, they were able to stand. So in the imagery that Paul is using in Ephesians chapter 6 on this study of the full armor of God and the way that the sandals are very significant, it means that you have to be prepared in the time of your warfare of not quitting and not giving up. You have to plant yourself firmly in the area that you are, in the ministry where you are at, in the place where you are called, and you have to stand and not let the fiery darts of the enemy, the words of Satan, the spears, and all the other activity take you down and cause you to fall. Great boxers learned a lesson many years ago, and that is this, that the boxers that became world champions were always from time to time knocked down. But the difference between a boxer that failed and the boxer that succeeded was their ability to get back up. So I want to encourage all of you today that if you've had any kind of a failure, to let God restore you and understand that He's given you the weapons through the Word of God, with your feet being prepared with the Word of God to follow Him and walk with Him and run the race. He's giving you the shoes to be able to stand and the faith to be able to stand in the midst of adversity. Now, don't forget the book, The Crack of the Armor of God. We only have a couple thousand of those left, but here's the new one, The American Apocalyptic Reset. We have a little advertisement about that coming up, and I want you to get this. It is now considered to be the most requested book in the 46-year history of our ministry, and you've helped make that possible. Stay tuned. Please give me your undivided attention. Many months ago, I began to hear secular economists announce a new global reset was coming. That's when I heard this phrase in my spirit, the American Apocalyptic Reset. For several weeks, I woke up early and began receiving a series of stunning prophetic downloads that I penned and now have placed them all in my brand new prophetic book, America's Apocalyptic Reset. This book is a must-read for all Christians, for all of those who love Bible prophecy, for conservative Americans and American patriots. The 19 chapters go extremely deep into exposing the agenda now being secretly plotted and to be publicly forced upon us, the American people, and how we can counter it. I discovered some very stunning ancient prophetic parallels and patterns, some that go back 4,000 years, that are repeating themselves in the United States right now. I deal with America's great BABEL reset and the planned persecution of Christians, America's self-curse, that will eventually bring judgment upon the nation. The coming Jezebel clash, the woman who will be president, how she should react and wisely resist corrupt governments. I reveal the unique Silicon Valley parallels and also go into the plans to bankrupt, then reset America economically. Also, I talk about how to function when the church must go underground. I received a very unique revelation concerning President Trump and a pattern that's found in history. There's a chapter also that I deal with how did the prophets get it wrong, and so much more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is probably the most significant prophetic book in the history of my ministry, especially in the time that we're in, but that's not all. I'm also including my most recent inside information prophetic briefing on 2 audio CDs. It's 2 hours in length, and I will release detailed information that I cannot, and I want you to hear me, I cannot nor will I share this on social media or on television, as absolutely in the climate that we're now in, a lot of this information would be targeted for being blocked and banned if it was made public and not done in this private setting that we're doing it in. These 2 hours contain biblical, political, national, and international revelation and information that I am sure that many of you have not been aware of. It is for truth lovers only. I want you to order right now this prophetic resource package, my brand new book, The Apocalyptic Reset, and the 2-hour prophetic CDs by going online at perrystone.org or calling 1-888-21-BREAD, or write me at Perry Stone, P.O. Box 3595, Cleveland, Tennessee 37320. Now, we're making this available for your donation of $35 or more, and you can request the offer APR-140. That's APR-140. I'm going to unmask the radical globalists and individuals who have set out to oppose and silence Christians, silence patriots, and shut the mouth of conservatives. And we will show you in the book what we can do when we unite together. We are looking forward to getting this into your hands.